I'm back from Mongolia, where I went fishing for Taimen. I thought it was Taimen, but it's actually Taimen. This is my gear video about what you might want to do and bring if you go to Mongolia to fish for Taimen, based on my experience. These are the bags I brought. I brought 3 bags. I brought my carry-on ruck. I carry my rods on the flights because I don't want them to get lost, and that's how I do it. And I carried this big bag of stuff. And then because of waders and boots and all that, and because cold weather clothes take up more room, I had to go 2 bags. So this is the other bag I brought. You'll note everything is waterproof. It's all got to be like submersible style waterproof. You don't want to do it with canvas. I mean, it's frosty every morning. You wake up, you have frost all over your sleeping bag if you don't sleep in a gur. The Russian word is yurt, the Mongolian word is gur, and have a stove. So everything's got to be hefty, super duper gnarly, completely waterproof. Don't skimp on that. Let's see what I brought. Okay, I brought pajamas. These are light. These worked for me, and it's because I had such a good sleeping bag. This was fine. And if you're sleeping in the gur, they'll be fine. So just, something comfortable to sleep in. I brought 3 different fleece. This is the heavier of them. So I actually wore this quite a bit. It was really good on cold mornings. It was really good in the evenings when it got cold. This is something, it's heavier than what I slept in. I slept in a fleece. But this is heavier and it was good. This is kind of a mid-weight fleece. And I could wear this and put this under my my down jacket, which is here. A puffy coat, a puffy down coat is awesome. You can see this one is well worn. The down's, it's coming out of it. But something like this is pretty important, pretty great. It stuffs down into your day bag, so you can always just throw it on if it gets cold. The weather is super, super, super variable. So having another layer to fight the cold like this is really important. I brought underwear. You don't need to know about that. Here is the lighter fleece that I brought. It's a thinner material. This is just a 3/4 zip. This is what I slept in. I slept in this nearly every night, partly because I was in a teepee that did not have a heater, whereas if you're in the gurs, you have a heater, like a stove, and you might not need it. But I did sleep in it one night when I slept in the gur, and it was really nice to have. Also, I could put this under my other fleece and then under my down coat if it really got cold. And that was pretty important because it gets really cold in Mongolia, like super cold. I brought wipes. I didn't end up really needing them because they actually had a shower. They boil hot water on a wood stove and then had a little battery operated pump that they could charge with solar. That was really great. So I didn't use really many wipes at all. So those are kind of optional. I use them on my face. I had some like face lotion wipe things and I use those. I brought a good raincoat. I just kept it in my ruck every day and I used it. It started raining on the last day. I was glad I had it every day because it could have rained at any time. A good raincoat or at least a rain shell is pretty important. It gets really windy too, and a shell like this helps block the wind. And it was actually like really great to have. And I would highly, highly recommend that you don't go to Mongolia without something that's going to keep the snow and the rain off you. I brought a wool vest. This was on the packing list, so I brought it. Full confession, I don't understand vests. Like, if I'm cold, I want a coat. I don't understand just putting something over your core. It doesn't ever seem to work enough for me. If I'm hot, I'm going to be so hot that I'm going to want to take off my coat and not just put, something that doesn't cover my arm. I don't know. People love vests. I don't get it. But this is a nice wool vest, and they told me to bring it, so I did. I didn't really wear it, hardly at all. I guess it's good to have, if I needed like one more layer over my core to keep warm, but I didn't ever actually need it, so I didn't end up wearing it. So I guess if you have room, you could bring a vest, but I wouldn't consider it crucial kit for a trip to Mongolia. I brought furry line Crocs. These were awesome. I had wanted to actually buy some Uggs, but I never got off my ass. These work just fine. Going like to the bathroom at night or in the morning, kind of walking around before you put your boots and waders on. They were perfect, exactly what you'd need. Really great. I brought camp soap. super helpful. Just took this. This is product for my hair that I would use after I showered. And this, I just washed my face. I washed some underwear. I washed everything in this. I just use this. I just take this in the shower with me and soap everything down and then rinse it off, and it was perfect. So highly recommend some biodegradable kind of camp soap of some sort. T-shirts, I brought too many. I brought like 3 or 4, and I didn't end up needing them. I only slept in them and then wore them like on the drive back. I would put one on after I showered, but I put the same one on every day because all I was doing was sleeping. So I ended up only needing like 1 or 2 T-shirts maybe. This was the first time I ever used packing cubes, I will tell you, and I'm like sold. Huge fan of the packing cube. When you're on a trip like this and you're going like you're at campsite 1 and then you have to pack up and move to campsite 2 and then you unpack and you pack it, like having everything kind of compartmentalized like this and just being able to take these bags and throw them back in your bag was really, really great. And the other thing too is that I labeled a lot of my packing cubes. Most of them are now just full of dirty clothes. But I labeled them. You can see here, I just wrote on them with Sharpie. Mid-layer sun shirts and vests. And that, so then I could like go through them and I'm not digging through this entire big bag of crap, which is such a pain in the ass. I don't know if anybody else ever had that experience, but it's horrible. And I just grab this and I'd be like, oh, great. These are my fleece pants. Yay. Okay. I'll bring this. So it worked really, really well. So, okay. This is my first packing cube. These were some socks that I wore like on the drive out to the camp. I'll get to the socks. Bring a lot of socks. Another T-shirt. All right. Getting to base layers. Here we go. All right. So this, I really don't like having wool against my skin. It's super itchy. Even really high quality, merino wool with a really small prickle factor. I know you're supposed to have it up against your skin because it fights odors in addition to keeping you warm, but I hate it because I have allergies and it makes me really uncomfortable, so I don't do it. But I did bring some merino wool, and I'll show you why. So these are the base layers that I wear. They're, technical, moisture wicking, heat reflecting, lots of millions of R&D went into this product. And I wore this up against my skin every single day. Every day I had one of these on. There was never a day that I didn't have one of these on. And there was never a day when I thought, man, I should be taking this off. It's that cold. You want this on. So I wore my base layer. I have the same thing on my bottoms that, again, I wore every single day. I wore the same, these are the bottoms, they're the same thing, with this highly technical, moisture wicking, heat reflecting stuff. And then over that, every day except one, and that one day I got cold, I wore a light merino wool shirt, like this. So this is, an ultralight. This is actually for hunting. It's an ultralight wool hunting shirt. This I wore on over that. And every day I wore this, and every day I was glad that I had this on. I think there was maybe one day that I took it off in the afternoon, and then I actually put it back on. And the one day that I didn't have it, like I said, I got a cold. And then these are fishing shirts. This one is a little bit heavier than your average kind of Sims Solar Flex. This is, I think it's a Rep Your Water. I think this has some wool in it too. And then I wore this. And then over this, so that's already 3 layers. Over this then, I wore a fleece or a down jacket. So that just kind of lets you know how cold it is and how many layers you want. And honestly, if I were to go back to Mongolia, I'd get a pair, I'd get some merino wool pants, and I would wear them over these, this technical moisture wicking base layer stuff. So I would put another layer on under my waders, and on top of these, on my bottoms, I wore fleece. So I had these base layers, fleece, and then my waders on my bottoms. And if I went back, I'd put another layer on my bottom. Socks. So I wear these wool socks. I know I said wool itches me, but actually on my feet, it's not so bad. It's just on my upper body. So I wore these kind of thin, long socks. And I'd pull them all the way up to my knees, to keep my lower legs warm. And then I put on another set of wool, thick hiking socks on my feet. And I wore 2 layers of socks every day under my waders and my boots, and that worked really well. And I would recommend doing that or something like it. to help keep your feet warm, because if you do, a lot of the fishing is from the boat, but if you do get out of the boat, it can get, and you're waiting, you can get real cold real fast. So that's my recommendation on that. Okay, gloves. I wore these one day. I was glad to have them. I kept them on me every day. These are super thick neoprene waterproof gloves. I recommend bringing some gloves. I can't stress enough that it gets really cold in Mongolia. And having these gloves, knowing I had them to fight the cold if I had to, was really great. And then, like I said, I did use them once. Buffs. I wore one every day. There's this really obnoxious midge that comes out when it warms up. And it loves to fly in your mouth and up your nose. And honestly, I use these to keep that from happening. And then a couple of times in the morning just for warmth. So I brought too many. You don't need this many, but I think I only use one or two. But I would definitely bring at least one or two for the midge factor, if nothing else. Baseball hats, I brought two. That's what I fish in. You'll also note that I brought a lot of waterproof dry bags, just in case I needed to throw something in the boat or whatever. So I used them for packing as additional packing cubes, and that also worked really, really well. I brought sunscreen. I recommend you bring sunscreen, even though it's Mongolia. Sun is still sun, and skin cancer really, really sucks. So I urge you to avoid it if at all possible. I brought deodorant because you are on a trip with other people, and they don't want to smell your stupid onion armpits. So wear deodorant on your fishing trip. It's the courteous thing to do. This is a kind of compact, quick-drying microfiber camp towel that I brought. I didn't need it. They had towels. So the shower was awesome. It was nice and hot. I took a shower almost every day, and I never needed my towel because they brought one. But so don't feel like you need to get in or bring a towel. Okay, more socks. I brought lots and lots of socks. I used them all. I would bring 2 pairs of socks for every day you plan to fish. That's my recommendation. Or be ready to wash socks. You can't go wrong with socks. Bring a couple pairs of underwear if you want to wear underwear, like on the drive home. You can pack a bag and leave it at the hotel in Ulaanbaatar for your flight home. I packed, clean pair of sweats, clean pair of underwear, clean pair of socks, so that I was not disgusting on the flight. That was actually really nice. Here's another fishing shirt. I only wore 2 of these. This one and the other one I showed you. Because the other ones I brought were those sun shirts, those lighter sun shirts, and they just weren't going to cut it. I brought hand warmers. I don't usually use them unless it's really cold, only for like when they're still hitting. I use them and I love them. I put 2 in each of my pockets of my down coat in the morning, and then I could warm my hands up all day long. You're stripping, and your hands get wet, and that water is cold, and it's cold outside, and in the mornings, it would be below freezing. And having these in your pocket, you could like quickly warm your hands up, was pretty great. So I would encourage you, just as a little bit of luxury, to bring these and stick them in your pocket. Keep your hands nice and warm. This packing cube has all the things I brought and didn't wear. This is like clean stuff. I'm not sure if it's all of it, but it's most of it. So these are kind of lighter sun shirts that I didn't wear because I was afraid I'd get cold. I didn't actually ever get to this one layer of bottoms. Honestly, I just went fucking commando in the evenings a good lot of the time, so I didn't wear a lot of the underwear I brought. And this is the short sleeve version of those merino wool hunting shirts, and I just, it was never warm enough that I was like, oh, just a short sleeve would be fine. And then I had an extra pair of socks. So these are the things that I didn't actually end up needing. The lighter sun shirts, a wool t-shirt, short sleeve, long sleeves I wore. And then I brought too many socks, because you can't ever actually have too many socks. More dirty socks. These are my wading boots. You're not allowed to wear felt in Mongolia. I asked in advance if I could bring new felt, because I have these Corker's boots where you can swap them out. And I said, if I just have brand new, never been worn felt, would that be okay? And they said it would. But I didn't really need it. There were a couple times where I definitely would have liked to have had felt because the grip is just better. But I went with these bottoms, and it was okay. It wasn't great. Felt is just so superior. in terms of grip and giving you purchase that I just don't think anything else really compares, in my opinion. But these worked just fine. The thicker Vibram soles with a little bit beefier tread might have been even better, and maybe then I wouldn't be saying I wish I had felt, but these did work out just fine. More fleece that I wore on my bottoms. Another t-shirt. Headlamp. This was pretty crucial, actually. I use this every day to find the toilet when it got dark out. Just being able to see while I was brushing my teeth or whatever, and just wandering around. Having some sort of a torch was really nice. And headlamps are always really great. And some people use them at night to like tie flies because we didn't have any power, so it was candlelight and headlamps if you wanted to tie flies in the evening. So people were wearing those, and I think made them pretty happy. So here are my waders. My waders that I usually use are all tore up from blackberries and roses and stuff. So I brought new waders, Gore-Tex breathable waders. Waders are waders. You don't want to do this trip without waders. There are other trips in Mongolia that you can do without waders and that people wet wade. This was not that, so I can't really speak to those trips. But apparently it is real. It does happen. I pre-bought a map of Mongolia so that I know where I was and have them show me, and that actually ended up being really cool. And they did show me, and it was really interesting to see where I was in the world, and I really like that aspect of it. These are my reels. I'm not going to bust them out. Here's this thing. The thing is, I'm an idiot. And I forgot that my last fishing trip was to the tropics, and I didn't change my fly lines. And I was sitting in the airport in Seoul waiting for my flight to Mongolia and was like, holy shit, I have all tropical lines on my reels. And I'm going to a very non-tropical place. And so I called the outfitter, and they're like, not to worry. The guys have stuff at the river. There's also a fly shop in Ulaanbaatar, and I ended up not going, but they also had fly lines. So it would have been fine. But this is a lesson learned. Don't forget to change your lines. I even thought about it, and I was like, no, I'm fine. They're cold, but they were not cold. They were tropical. So you do not want to be using a cold water line in a tropical environment, and you do not want to be using a tropical line in a cold water environment. There's a little bit of overlap where it's not going to suck, but to go from like tropical with a bonefish line to Mongolia, where it's below zero every night, it's going to be miserable. Don't do it. Make sure you've got the right lines for your fishing conditions. It makes a big difference. Okay, I'm going to get to the fishing gear in a minute. I'm still kind of doing camp stuff. Wading belt. Don't leave home without it. You always got to have a good wading belt. It can save your life. Underwear. I found this cool agate in Mongolia. They said I should bring it home. It's kind of rad, right? You can tell it's an agate because it lets light through. That's how you know. Anyway. Okay, I brought this nice pair of saltwater pliers. This was great. You're dealing with big hooks, and they got to be barbless, so this helps crimp them down. You're dealing with thick lines. It's always nice. Hot hand warmers here. I actually brought a second set of gloves. It was nice to have it. This is a little bit thinner, so I had options. I really didn't end up wearing my gloves at all, but I was glad to have them, and I certainly could see that if the weather turned, I could have been using them. It would have been great. I brought an air mattress because the last trip I did where I was sleeping on camp cots, I got pretty uncomfortable, and I was like, never again. It's not so bad if I'm in my hammock, but camp cots kind of suck. I didn't use this. They have really nice thick foam on the cots, and then there's like 4 wool blankets that you can sleep on, and that was plenty. I was super comfortable. I never broke this out. I'm wondering if I can return it and get my money back. I brought this honkin' 0-degree sleeping bag because I knew I was going to be sleeping in a teepee that had no stove. And I would wake up in the morning and this thing would be covered in ice. So it was cold. But I was cozy in my sleeping bag. This is a Big Angus, which I like because they make them a little bigger, and if you sleep on your side, they're real nice. So this is a Big Angus 0-degree bag that I got on Steep and Cheap for like $200. And it worked like a champ. I could actually like pull this all the way up over my head and get all the way inside. And as long as I didn't like Dutch oven myself, that was pretty darn comfortable as far as warmth goes. Like I said, I just used pajama bottoms, t-shirt fleece, and then I had some fleece socks. that I wore on my feet. And I was toasty until I had to get out of it. You know, getting into it and getting out of it sucked. But once I was in it, I was actually really quite comfortable. And that covers it for kind of, oh, yeah, sorry, one thing. I also brought just a pillowcase. This is kind of a trick I learned on another trip. You bring a pillowcase and then you can just shove whatever into it for a pillow. And it also is pretty nice. Like I was going from the teepee to the dining room when they moved me because it was so cold to some place that had a stove. I could just like shove all my nighttime stuff in here, my face wipes, my toothbrush, whatever. And it was easy to transport stuff to and from. So a pillowcase is not wasted space on a trip. All right, so that's all the kind of comfort life camping things. Let's talk about fishing. Fishing. I brought flies. I brought these big, you don't need them, they have them, but I brought some just in case. And I brought all of my big, beefy jungle flies from when I went fishing for Arapaima, and these were the ones that they wanted to use. And we used them a little bit. They didn't quite work, but if you're going to bring flies, you want to bring streamers, mice, gurglers, stuff like that. Big, attractive flies. Taimen are super, super aggressive, highly predatory animals, and they want to eat big meals for little effort in that cold weather. So that is what I would encourage you to bring if you want to bring flies, but you don't have to. I also brought tippet. I brought, you can see, 40-pound, 25-pound, and 20-pound fluoro. All fluorocarbon. This is all saltwater stuff. You don't need it. They've got it, but I think it's just kind of nice and courteous to bring a little extra tippet. And I know it'll get used, so I brought some, but you don't have to if you don't want to. This is a reel. I brought reels, like I said. So in terms of rods, I brought 4 rods, and I only ended up using 2 rods. And the only things that I ended up using were a 6-weight and an 8-weight rod. There's a 9 in here, and there's a 10 in here. Trust me, that's what's in here. You don't need the 9, and you don't need the 10. The 9 might have been nice because after casting really big flies on an 8-weight rod for a week, your arms get pretty tired, and a lot of people were really, they're just kind of, you're just smoked. Your body is smoked. You're just tired. And so being able to use a 9-weight rod might have been nice, but it wasn't necessary. The 8-weight was fine. You do want to be able to cast an 8-weight a pretty good distance. Having a nice double hull is helpful, but also some precision casting is pretty helpful as well. But you don't, if you wanted to, you could bring an 8-weight with a floating line, and then a matching reel or spool with a sinking line, and that might be a good thing. But that's really all you need. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I did bring a beanie. This is the beanie that I wore. I wore this every single day. And having something like this to put on over your head while you're sleeping is pretty nice. So some sort of a nice fleece or a thick wool cottony beanie of some sort is really good. If I went back, I'd probably bring another one that was a little bit softer, that it was more comfortable to sleep in. And this one kind of got loose after a while, so I might bring a tighter one because they do tend to loosen up on you. I'll probably throw this in the wash, see if I can't shrink it down. But you definitely want something to keep your head warm. You also want all the usual suspects, polarized sunglasses, of course, whatever you like for your fishing trips. If there's anything particular you want, you don't really need floatants. I think they probably would have had it if I needed it. I didn't need it. That's it. I brought power banks and lenses for my camera. Melatonin, I always bring melatonin, charging cell, and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it. That's it. That's your gear and your gear recommendations for a Mongolia trip for fishing for Taimen. It was the first week of October when I was there. And when I left, the weather was just starting to turn. It was starting to snow. The fishing gets better towards the end of the year. They only had one more trip, one more week of the season, and then that was going to be the end of Taimen fishing for this year. Apparently, as it gets colder and the Taimen feel that weather changing and they feel it getting colder, they really get aggressive about eating, and the fishing gets better and better and better. But that means you're dealing with colder and colder weather and colder and more extreme weather. So you really want to make sure you've got enough layers. I would recommend always having at least one more layer than you need, because if it does get cold, the weather does drop, or you fall in the river and you get wet or something, having that extra layer could really be a lifesaver, almost literally. So overpack on the layers for sure, and definitely make sure your layers are really good quality and something that you can use all day and be in all day. And then that is what I would emphasize if you're trying to decide on space. Go with that extra layer. I don't think you'll regret it even if you don't use it. So that's it. If you're going fish for Taimen and you have questions, hit me up. Bushinthewoods@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks and good luck.